So thank you all for being here. It's been quite lovely to see talent be the issue in every session and not just this one. And certainly there's a lot of concern about it. I cover a lot of issues at the Center for Automotive Research, but talent is certainly the most critical and the most in demand these days. And my boss, Sean McLinden, says you should always start with a joke. I'm not really funny, I'm sorry. But I did find something. Here we have the corporate dilemma. What if we train them and they leave? What if we don't and they stay? And we all laughed, but if you think about that, that's really kind of scary and not very funny. What I'm going to do here today is frame the discussion that we're going to have with some data. And let's look at some things in our technology and demographics and skills and wages and how does that all play out. First of all, employment growth by types of occupation. So this is the motor vehicle and parts industry. We see our motor vehicle and parts industry is projected to grow nearly 6% by 2022. That's a little bit less than the economy overall. But within our occupational groups, we're growing quite fast for skilled trades workers, 7.7%, so a little bit more than the industry overall. Production at 6.8%, and engineering, computer, and math careers are 6.2% growth. So, that really puts us into context of where we're going to grow. There's some more reasons why we're going to hire folks. So, our friends at the Original Equipment Suppliers Association do a regular member survey where they ask their members a bunch of things, and they often come to talent issues. And this one popped out for me from their May survey, that 2/3 of the responders say that engineering talent is a very significant risk for their product launches and new products. And if you've been in sessions earlier today, the forecasting session in particular, where they talked about what our new product cadence is looking like in the future. In 2018, we're launching a zillion vehicles globally, and we're going to need that engineering talent to get that done. Our industry demographics are another component of demand. So not only are we growing, and we need them for all of these new technologies and new product launches, but we have an aging workforce in the motor vehicle and equipment manufacturing industry. A lot of people left in 2008 and 2009. A whole lot of people left. But still, we have, on average, an older workforce, older than all industries and older than manufacturing. That orange line is motor vehicle and equipment. And that really, pushes us out a little bit further. So we're doing a lot of hiring and backfill. So what is it like out there? How's hiring? I saw somebody had flyers out on our tables at the social hour last night. We're hiring, come here now. And all the students, you're here at the right time and people are looking for you. So a recent study done by Brookings looked at the duration of job postings. How long are those jobs staying open before they're pulled down from any social media or job boards or even more traditional posting in the media? And this shows us that presumably jobs are a lot harder to fill right in the center of the auto industry in Michigan. There's some very long durations there, as well as some of our other automotive hubs in the Mid-South and South Carolina. Within Detroit, the Detroit metropolitan area is the data on the right. The jobs that are very difficult to find, where postings last a long time, are engineering and architecture occupations, computer and mathematical sciences, and installation, maintenance, and repair, also known as skilled trades and maintenance associates. This is, all industries, and what we're doing here at CAR is we're drilling down below this to see exactly what does it look like for automotive, and I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. Clearly, all indicators point to very strong demand, and supply seems pretty tight, too. And when I was getting ready for this conference, the CEO and chairman, Jay Barron, asked me, could you get me a couple of wage slides together? Because I'm sure with all this demand and talent and everybody's hair on fire, wages must be going through the roof. I said, I wish I could give you those slides. It's not that I can't do them, but it's not quite that pretty of a picture when you look at what wages are doing. I pulled for 4 representative engineering categories, so electrical, industrial, materials, and mechanical engineers. And you see nice flat lines. I've even scaled them to try to make them have some differences. They're scaled on a 70,000 to 100,000 y-axis to try to magnify all those changes, but they're not there, I'm sorry. The blue line is the nominal line, or the wage that's paid in the year, and then the green line is adjusted for inflation. We haven't had a whole lot of inflation, but those lines are a little bit different, and what you see is really very flat wages across the averages. This is for motor vehicle parts manufacturing. If you look at motor vehicle manufacturing for assembly, you see very similar patterns. And it could be, we're hiring a lot of people. Averages get pulled down when lots of new people come into the industry. And entry-level workers generally earn less than the more experienced workers. So we should probably look at some distributions, because maybe that's what's going on with the averages. And I'm sorry to say that's not really what happens. What we saw is average annual wages falling for all but 3 cohorts when you look at these 4 representative occupations in motor vehicle parts. So the 10th percentile of electrical engineers, their wages in real terms went up 2.4% between 2010 and 2013. The 10th percentage, or the entry-level material engineers, up 7.9%. That might have something to do with lightweighting. That is a category that's in high demand. And the 90th percentile, or the more experienced and higher paid material engineers, saw a boost in real terms of 4.3%, but no one else. And in fact, there's some losses there. So that's what the status of what we're paying people. That's why people would come to our industry, is that we pay them decent wages and they can have a good job here. Let's look at motor vehicle and parts overall on the production side. This is one of my most tweeted charts that I put out, and it gets retweeted every time I update it. But the average production worker hourly wage is down nearly a quarter in real terms and flat in nominal terms since 2003, well before our crisis, well before second-tier wages hit the UAW contracts. I mean, this does show the impact of those lower entry-level hourly wages, both union and non-union, and the entry of lower-wage producers. So, as I did with the engineering occupations, I kind of drilled down into some of the hourly wages to see what's happening, and those are nice flat lines too. The average annual wages, which by the way also include overtime, which is why I did that rather than hourly, again, very flat or falling for team assemblers in the top left, industrial machinery mechanics on the top right, CNC programmers on the bottom left, and tool and die on the bottom right. And I don't know about you, but when I drive around, I cannot go anywhere without seeing signs for CNC programmers hanging out little shingles in front of people's shops. Certainly on your way to John's shop, you see a lot of that in that supply park. It's just astonishing, and I'm really concerned about this. But again, we've hired a lot of new people. These are the averages. What's it look like on the distributions? It's bad. Only group with real wage growth is the 10th percentile for CNC programmers, and that could be that shingle effect, that the wages are up 3.3% from 2010 to 2013. I'm really concerned about the skilled trades, and I have been for some time, that we really have a crisis brewing there. The skilled trades workers in the automotive industry across the board are in that older age cohort. And we're not replacing them because we have an overabundance of them in some parts of our industry, but their jobs are really changing a lot. And so let's see, what are we doing? What's the pipeline look for skilled trades jobs? This is all industries across the entire United States, the number of active registered apprentices by year. And over this 10-year period that I'm showing here, down 41%. And that's just astonishing to me. There's lack of diversity in our skilled trades group. It's 6% women, 10% African American. I have to say, one of my very first jobs in the auto industry, I was going out and doing a promotional brochure for getting women and minorities involved in skilled trades, and I hate to tell you how long ago that was, but it did start with a 1, 9, and an 8. It was a very long time ago that we were doing that, and it's still an issue. last month in Washington, D.C., the federal government held a big Apprenticeship Summit. And that was, kind of a big wake-up call for the feds that we've got an issue going on here. Part of what they did was announce $100 million in funding and a goal of doubling the number of apprentices in 5 years. That would take us back to about 2003. So that's good. It's nice to have some attention. It's nice to have some money. That's capacity building money and promotional money. It's not student aid, but it is going to be out there and on the streets this fall. In Michigan, I was talking to the apprenticeship coordinator for Region 5 DOL. He's from Michigan, but he represents the whole upper Midwest here. He said, Michigan, we've seen a 27% increase in registered apprentices since the first quarter of 2013. So we're well on our way to doubling, but we got a long way to go. And it's really a lot easier than you think to have a registered apprenticeship. And some of those are union, some of them aren't. Doesn't really matter. This is a really good way to infuse skills into people and provide them on-the-job training. And if you were in the forecast session, you also noticed a lot of concern about college debt. A skilled tradesperson gets paid to earn, and they come out with very little debt, if any. So I think that this is a really big opportunity for us to promote skilled trades as a way to get ahead, to get a good career, to make a lot of money. My nephew, who's a skilled tradesman, makes way more money than I do. And to have a really good life and not have any of that college debt bearing up on top of you. There's a couple of programs in the auto industry that I want to call your attention to. One is the MEDC is running something called MAT Squared. And in South Carolina, there's Apprenticeship Carolina. Now, I don't have a lot of time to go into those. Maybe we can talk about them in the questions. But these are very successful programs so far in promotion, developing curriculum, and providing some incentives and support for the students. Now, you may wonder what that $100 million is going to do. Is that a drop in the bucket? Is that a lot of money? What do we spend as a country on training and employment services? It's not a lot, I gotta tell you. And for an issue that's been such a crisis, US spending has been flat. And it was just $3.2 billion overall last year, and that's 23% decline in inflation-adjusted terms since 2006. And that includes a year, that little bump there, that was a year that didn't exist. The Recovery Act in and of itself was more than we're spending now on training and employment services at the federal level. Now, a lot of employers are facing these issues too, right? And certainly, you're doing a lot. And we've heard a lot about what employers are doing to try to attract new employees, to retain the people that they have. So what are employers spending on training? You'd expect it would be going up, but it's not. And maybe they've gotten efficient. Maybe they're just training and it doesn't cost them as much because they're using all these e-delivery programs and things like that. So we looked at how many hours, average hours, learning hours per employee, and that's down 14% in this time frame from 2006 through 2012. So we're spending less time in training, and that's remarkable, given all the hiring we've done, all the onboarding we've done, all the technological change that's happening in the industry and the training that's had to happen with that. This is, of course, industry-wide, but still, we have really had a lot of people with their hair on fire about talent issues, and we don't have a lot of spending on this. So I'll come back to where I started. I've talked to a lot of companies. A lot of smaller employers in particular are facing this conundrum. They're afraid that they cannot pay enough to keep people, and that their people are too busy to train. And they rely heavily on contract and temp employees who are not being invested in for human capital because they're reluctant to take on fixed costs of permanent workers. So I think we're seeing a lot of that going on in this current job market. So Craig covered very well that we still have some skill gaps, and training gaps and education gaps and gaps all over the place. We don't see them as very widespread across the industry. What we see is a real need for more public and private sector investment in building the human capital in our country overall, but especially in the auto industry. It's important to note that jobs create the need for training, and training doesn't create the need for jobs. You can't just train people in a vacuum and have that divorced from what industry needs are. So people in industry need to be working with our educators at the secondary, primary, college, technical, and community college level universities to make sure they're producing graduates that have industry relevant skills. And you'll notice a lot of the data that I presented, it was broad brush, it was the whole industry, it was just parts, it was the whole economy. We're working right now to try to get to the bottom of the dynamics within autos specifically. This is the limitations of the government data that exist. And that's really going to require us to do some primary research, which is where you guys come in. You got a problem finding people, you can help contribute to the solution. The MEDC is sponsoring some talent research here at CAR, and we're focused on mainly the technological changes and how that's going to change the employment and skill levels going forward, and what kind of gaps we have in our systems and how we can address them. We're looking at connected and automated vehicle technology, multi-material vehicles, powertrain and advanced propulsion, advanced manufacturing, and supply chain and logistics, which is going on next door. But those all have very critical changes in the skill needs going forward. So what you can do now so that we can prepare for the future that's coming down the road. And our forecast seminar showed that we've got a pretty good future ahead of us. This problem is going to continue to be here until we do something about it. So I hope we can do something about it by understanding it better. Thank you.